In the name of Allah, who is most merciful and benevolent, this is the course Technical Writing and Presentation Skills. I'm your course instructor, Zahira Fatma, from Education University, Bank Road Campus, Lahore.
Assalamu alaikum. Dear students, our today's lecture is about report writing. In this lecture, we will discuss what is report and then we will take a look about the types of reports.
Dear students, let's have a look towards the objectives of this lecture. I hope that after having that lecture, you will be able to cope with the situation, that what are the purposes of any sort of report and how you can formulate any sort of report, and with the help of understanding about the structure of the report, how you will able to collect the data, and after organization of that data you will be able to follow a particular sample or style of report writing to be able to formulate any particular report. Then in this lecture you will be able to understand about the types of report, what are those particular types, and then further subcategorization of those major types, what are the particular framework of any report, and what are those sampling or data collecting or organization framework which you can follow to write down the report.
Now, the point is, what is report writing? Report writing is an essential skill for professionals in almost every field, including accountants, teachers, graphic designers, information scientists, and many more others. Now, let us have a look what is report. A report or count is any informational work, usually of writing, speech, television, or film, made with the specific intention of relaying information or recounting events in a widely presentable form.
Reports require impartiality and objectivity. Logically determine a decision or an outcome. It must present all sides of the question, even if they counter to your own interpretation of data. Base all interpretations and conclusions on the solid facts presented in the body of your report.
A report aims to inform as clearly and succinctly as possible. It should be easy to read and professional in its presentation. Written reports are documents which present focused, salient content to a specific audience. Reports are often used to display the result of an experiment, investigation, or inquiry. The audience may be public or private, an individual, or the public in general. Reports are used in government, business, education, science, and other fields.
Readers' needs must be considered if additional information, clarification, and verification are necessary. Too much information may decrease your reader's interest. Check for ideas that are not absolutely necessary.
Reports use features such as graphics, images, voice, or specialized vocabulary in order to persuade that specific audience to undertake an action. One of the most common formats for presenting reports is EMRAT. That means introduction, methods, results, and discussions. This structure is standard for the genre because it mirrors the traditional publication of scientific research and summons the ethos and credibility of that discipline. Along with this format, there are many more other formats which can be utilized for writing the reports. Additional elements often used to persuade readers include headings to include topics, to more complex formats including charts, tables, figures, pictures, tables of contents, abstracts, and noun summaries, appendices, footnotes, hyperlinks, and references.
Once you are done with your report, check for stylistic weakness. Ensure that it is complete, uncluttered, impartial, and interesting.
Students, reports are very important in all their various forms along with the usual evidences. Like in a crime scene, people usually leave behind evidences. They fill a vast array of critical needs for many of society's important organizations. Furthermore, police reports are extremely important to society for a number of reasons. They help to prosecute criminals while also helping the innocent become free. Reports are a very useful method for keeping track of important information contained in reports can be used to make very important decisions that affect our lives daily.
You must be very efficient, that you must emphasize and highlight the importance and usefulness of your report. Be concrete and deliberate in describing the benefits of your report. Furthermore, assume a neutral position regarding the facts and data you collect. Avoid words that tend to be emotional or prejudicial towards the facts. List facts and figures instead of non-specific words.
Now students have a look towards what needs to be done in writing a report. The first step is, in this regard, record the objectives. The next step, record the design of the survey and how it was determined. The next step is record how the survey was carried out. Along with that, we have to keep in mind to record the summary of data collected. And at the end, the last but not the least, analysis of data. Students, these are some of those steps which you have to keep in your mind while writing a report.
Students, writing report is no different than sitting down to write a letter in terms of the approach taken. In this regard, you have to be very vigilant enough while you are determining your purpose. After determination of your purpose, you must consider your audience and then analyze the problem. On the basis of these factors, you will conduct your research and evaluate your results. And finally, you will be able to prepare your outline. When you are talking about to determine your purpose, there are some sub-factors for which you have to be very careful. What need will your furnished report will satisfy? Then report to the client, reference for future cases, the rationale for the legal cause, an explanation of what the case should be or should not be pursued, or all of the above. Then what decisions will be made as a result of your report: to appeal or not to appeal, to continue on as legal counsel to the client. Is the report informational, interpretive, or analytical? Are you simply reporting on what happened, or are you also offering your opinion and recommendations, or what needs to be determined? These are those points for which you have to be very careful.
Now, students, let's share some principles of report writing. The first one is the language should be clear and unambiguous. Short sentences should be used. Then, no technical terms or business phrase should be used which are not likely to be understood by the person for whom the report is intended. The next step is that reports written by an individual should be written in the first person, but reports submitted by a committee or subcommittee must be written in an impersonal manner, means to say in the third person and in past tense. The report should preferably be written in the narrative form, setting out the facts, findings, and recommendations in such a logical way that they present a coherent picture.
Keeping all these points in your mind, as we have earlier discussed, that your report has some important steps starting from the introduction. While you are talking about the introduction, you have to be careful about some sub points, just like that: background, problem discussion, purpose, and delimitations. These are those steps which are involved in the introductory step or introductory passage of your report while you are formulating the outline for any sort of report. Then the other step in this regard is the theoretical framework. In theoretical framework, students, you have to be careful about the consumer preferences, target group, brand, advertisement, sponsorship, and analysis model. These are those steps which are involved in the theoretical framework. The other step in this regard is methodology. What methodology you will adopt for the outlining or for the preparation of your report. There are some steppings in this regard, just like that: choice of subject, research approach, data collection, value of study, and revision of the chosen methodology. These are those steps which are equally important in formulating any sort of outline of the report.
The other important point to be noted is that the data presented in support of the recommendations should be accurate, reliable, and complete. And the conclusions and recommendations should be based on factual data, not impressions, and unbiased so that they can be depended upon by the recipient for deciding on a course of action. The last point, which is very important in this regard, is the report should be as brief as possible in keeping with the purpose for which it is needed. But clearness should not be sacrificed for the sake of conciseness. The report should be to the point, using the minimum number of words and avoiding repetitions and exaggerations.
From the above discussion, we come to the point that while we are collecting the data, that must be reality based, factual based, not the fake one. And you have to collect the data being and not giving the favoritism to anyone. That must be unbiased. And after collecting the data, the important step is the analysis. You have to analyze the collected data, and in order to come toward the conclusions, the pure and true analysis is the requirement of a good or effective conclusion. When you are talking about the conclusions, there must be research questions, reflections, purpose, future research, and all these conclusions must be based upon the analysis of your factual data. And at the end, You must also quote the references in order to make your report authentic and reliable.
Students, when you are writing a report, then there are particular important steps which you have to follow, or you have to keep these points in your mind, that the material whatever you are collecting, that is specific to your particular topic, and then it must be detailed, but detailed in that sense that there must not be any irrelevant material you have to add in your report. Then the material whatever you are adding in your report, that must be clear, the sentences, the wording, the language which you are utilizing in order to put up your ideas, all those written material must be clear one. And there is a standard which you have to maintain throughout your report. These are particular steps which you have to follow while you are writing a report, so that your report may be effective. From our earlier discussion, we come to the point that a report discusses a particular problem in detail. It is purely based on observation and analysis. We see that most official form of information or work are completed via report. Students, a good report is always fact-finding and not fault-finding. It should be prepared in an impartial manner. The writers of the report should be impartial in their outlook and approach.
Students, our today's second topic of discussion is types of report. There are two main categorization of reports or types. First is formal and second one is informal report. Further, we will discuss both these reports in detail. The first form of report is formal report. Let's have a look towards this report in detail.
Students, a formal report is one which is written in a prescribed, means official form, and is presented according to an established procedure to a prescribed authority.
It is a report for upper management or for an other organization. Formal reports are used for research papers in higher education. They are impersonal, rarely using personal pronouns and contractions. Students' formal reports are longer and well researched. They also may be preceded by a proposal. They include a content page if the reports are more than 5 pages. A cover letter or memo may be required.
Students, formal reports can be categorized as: first one is informational reports, the second analytical reports, the third recommendation reports. These are the categorizations of formal reports.
Before discussing all these reports in detail, let's have a quick view of all these reports. The first category of formal reports is informational report. Informational report presents information. The second category is analytical report. Students, analytical reports has two functions. First of all, it not only presents information, but it also analyzes information and draws conclusion. The third form or third type of formal reports is recommendation report. Recommendation report presents information. On the other hand, it also analyzes information and draws conclusion. And at the end, it recommends course of action.
Now, we will discuss these types one by one. The first one is informational reports. Informational reports present results, so readers can understand a particular problem or situation. Students, informational reports might present information on the status of current research or of a project. It can present an update of the operation in your division. It can also explain how your organization or division does something.
As we have shared that informational reports present results for the understanding of readers about a particular situation, problem, or scenario. In this regard, here's a good example of a manager of a city's website might prepare an informational report for the city council. The report would provide statistics on the number of people who pay their city water and sewage bills online, etc. I think that is a good example in case of informational reports. You can better understand that how this report enables the readers to fully equipped about the informations for the prevailing situation and the prevailing problem, whatever is being faced by the people in that particular during that particular time.
Students, the second category of formal report is analytical reports. This type goes a step beyond presenting results. Analytical reports present results, analyze those results, and draw conclusions based on those results. These reports attempt to describe why or how something happened and then to explain what it means. Students, analytical reports might explain what caused a problem or situation. It can explain the potential results of a particular course of action. It can also suggest which option, action, or procedure is best.
So we can say that in analytical reports, not only we can get information, but these reports also give an analysis of the information, and from those information draw conclusions. Here's a good example in this regard, that analytical reports presents the results of a traffic study showing accidents at an intersection. This report explains what it means. Means to say that it will unveil the whole story based upon the information, and then all that information will be analyzed, and after the analysis of the information, the results or the conclusions will be drawn, and all the detailed explanation will be revealed to the readers.
The third category of formal report is recommendation reports. This type advocate a particular course of action. This usually present the results and conclusions that support the recommendations. As you see, students, that this type is identical to analytical report. It explains what should we do about a problem. Should we or can we do something? Should we change the method or technology we use to do something?
So we see here that analytical reports and recommendation reports are quite similar. That in analytical report, as we discussed earlier, it not only give the information but also give the analysis, and then or at the basis of analysis it gives the results or conclusions, and same is the case in recommendation reports. Here's a good example. In case of recommendation report, your analytical report suggests using treatment X is more efficient than treatments Y and Z. However, that does not mean that you will use treatment X as cost, and other considerations might recommend treatment Y. So, with the help of this, you will be better able to understand about the recommendation reports.
Now, students, let's share what are those steps which are involved in planning for the preparation of a formal report. First one is that identify the readers. Further, determine your purpose and then formulate specific questions. Conduct research to answer the questions which you have formulated. Then draw valid conclusions, means for analytical or recommendation reports. Then decide on recommendations for recommendations, and at the end write the report. This is a plan how you can prepare yourself for writing a formal report.
There are many different types of reports, but the basic outline for all the formal reports must be the same one. And while you are writing a formal report, you should check the particular requirements for the subject. A formal report should have the following arrangements, or you can say there are a particular systematical steps which you have to follow while you are writing a formal report. In this regard, the first and foremost step is title page. The title page must include the subject of the report, means to say who the report is for, who the report is by, and the date of submission. After the title page, the second step is abstract. Now we have to see what is an abstract. An abstract is usually 100 to 200 words and should include the particular steps like why the report has been written. That means what question or problem is it addressing. Then how the study was undertaken. The next is what the main findings were and what the significance or importance of the finding is. Be specific and precise so that the reader can get a good understanding of the main points without having to read the whole report. The abstract, you can say a short summary. The abstract should be on a separate page with the centered heading abstract in capitals. Means the word abstract will be in capitals. It is usually written in a single paragraph with no indentation. After having abstract, the third step is table of contents. Now we will have a look towards table of content. The table of contents should be on a separate page. It helps the reader to find specific information and indicates how the information has been organized and what topics are covered. The table of contents should also include a list of figures,
and a list of tables, if any are used in the report. After the table of contents, the next step is introduction. The introduction has three main components. The first one is the background, which describes events leading up to the existing situation, what projects have been done previously, and why the project or study is necessary. The second step is the purpose, which defines what the project or study is to achieve, who authorized it, and the specific terms of reference. The third step is the scope, which outlines any limitations imposed on the project, such as cost, time, etc. The next step is body. The body varies according to the type of report. Basically, it answers the questions who, why, where, when, what, how. In an investigative report, it would consist of all the information required to convince the reader that the conclusion would be drawn with the help of all this material, and in this way you can formulate a formal report. Now students, it's the turn of informal report. In this we will see that what is informal report, how we can define it, and what are the categorization of informal reports. Now have a look towards what is informal report. An informal report is usually in the form of a person-to-person communication. It may range from a short, almost fragmentary statement of facts on a single page to a more developed presentation taking several pages. The informal report functions to inform, analyze, and recommend. It usually takes the form of a memo, letter, or a very short international document like a monthly financial report, monthly activities report, research and development report, etc. Students, this report differs from the formal report in length and formality. Further, it is very important to note that it is written according to organization style and rules, but usually does not include the preliminary means front and supplemental means back material. The informal report is usually more controversial in tone and typically deals with everyday problems and issues addressed to a narrow readership inside the organization. Dear students, there are many embodiments of the informal reports like informational report, progress and status report, feasibility report, periodic reports, and troubleshooting reports. Common to all reports is their purpose, means to say to convey information thoroughly, accurately, and objectively, and written because people in authority need information. Possibly
in order to recommend a certain action, evaluate the efficiency of a new process, or in order to keep track of daily activities. When we talk about the particular features of informal report, then we come to know that introduction and conclusion are included in the body of the report, and there is no abstract, means no short or precise summary. Further, it includes very short headings, and only in that case if necessary. And it includes the facts without embellishing the detail. And finally, it includes recommendations.
Now come towards the progress reports. Type of informal report that you have to write to explain how much progress is being made on something you have previously planned. It describes an ongoing project. It enables you to check on yourself so that you can better estimate what remains to be done and what the resources, especially time, you have to do it.
So we can say that in progress reports, there are particular features, including they give accounts of work that is currently being done but is not yet completed. And further, they communicate project problems, thus reducing the rippling effects those problems can have on scheduling, costs, and other operational factors.
Students, the next is status reports. It describes what is being accomplished in the present and with existing conditions in general. It is just another type of progress report. It lays emphasis on existing conditions.
So we can say that status reports give summarized overview of the whole project, and along with this present conditions described in detail and work completed and remaining. All this is explained in status reports, and finally give the final recommendations.
Students, the other report is feasibility reports. A feasibility report is the results of a feasibility study. This report details whether or not a project should be undertaken and the reasons for that decision. A feasibility study is an analysis of the viability of an idea through a disciplined and documented process of thinking through the idea from its logical beginning to its logical end. There are certain components or elements in a feasibility report. Like the first component or element of the feasibility report is introduction. The second component is proposed action. When we move ahead, the third element in a feasibility report is conclusion. And finally, you have to give final recommendations in a feasibility report. Students, it is important to keep in your mind that the introduction of a feasibility report should include certain factors. And what are these factors? Background and purpose of the report should be included in the introduction. Then, on the other hand, statement of the problem is equally important, which you have to include in the introduction. And on the third step, your back introduction must brief the extent of the study. And it is also important to note that in the introduction, criteria used in the study should be mentioned. The middle section should consist of a detailed discussion of the single action or several alternative actions under consideration. Now students, it is important to keep in your mind that an effective feasibility report discusses all of the possible factors that might influence a decision on the best action. And you should be vigilant enough that your report should conclude with one or two paragraphs summarizing your conclusions and recommendations.
So we can say that decisions have to be made every day. An investigation to decide on the most appropriate decision is called feasibility study, and the report that conveys the study is called feasibility report. Probably the most difficult type of report to write because it requires you to make decisions. So, focus of feasibility reports should be the recommendations.
Now it's the turn of periodic reports. These reports allow management to keep track of ongoing operations on a periodic or regular basis. They can be filed daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, or yearly. They may even take the form of an elaborate and often costly formal report.
Periodic reports can take almost any form depending on the project and the frequency of reports required. And these periodic reports are routine type.
Now it's turn of troubleshooting reports. Students, these reports are used by technicians to convey information regarding the analysis and correction of problems found in industrial products. The purpose of troubleshooting reports is, first of all, to analyze the problem symptoms, seeking to locate the defect, and third, to correct the defect.
Students, there are certain components or elements in troubleshooting reports. Like the first element in troubleshooting report is introduction. The second element in this regard is body. And the third element is conclusion. And the final component is final recommendations. When we talk about introduction, the introduction has three components. The first one is background, second purpose, and the third is scope. In the first component, named as background, it describes events leading up to the existing situation. Then the second step is purpose. It defines what the project or study is to achieve. Then the third component is scope. It means what is its limitations. Now the second step in troubleshooting report is body, in which the main problem or issue is being
discussed. After going through introductory components, background, purpose, scope, and the second step body, then we come towards the conclusion in which you have to sum up the report. And finally, when you are giving the final recommendations, the recommendations should follow naturally from the conclusions. They should be offered in descending order of importance and may be in point form when several recommendations are being made. Dear students, here is a sample report in which you are looking that there are some different elements or components are being mentioned here. These are those elements which you have to arrange in a systematical order in order to make any effective report. Now let's have a look towards these all components and elements, how to arrange all those elements. At the first step is a target audience. In target audience there are particular information which you have to include, like you have to mention the name of that audience about whom you are writing down that report, and then the name of institution, address, and position or status. All these information will be mentioned in the case of target audience. After that, what is the important thing, that is to mention the date, time, and location. And along with date, time, and location, you have to mention the purpose, and that purpose must be in summarized form, in a brief form, and the issues which are related to that problem you have to mention in subheadings and in bullet forms. Then the current scenario or the present situation you have to mention in the form of some points, so that the whole scenario may be cleared before the eyes of the reader. After that, whatever the issues are prevailing or related to that problem, you have to mention, or you have to unreveal all those issues. Then after interpreting all these information, you have to give your future goals, that what will be the outcome of all this information or all this research or of this report. You have to mention that future goals or objectives in the form of points. If you have more objectives or goals, so you can interpret all those objectives or goals in the form of points. Then short-term plans and solutions. You have to give the possible solutions which can solve that issue or that problem. You have to mention all those solutions, and at the end you have to give the recommendations, so that how to solve the problem, the suggestions you put forward, and at the end full name of the author. That is very important one, to mention the name of the author who has written that report. All these points are equally important in writing a report. So I think so after having a look towards this sample, you will be able to write down a report in a systematical order, having the systematical arrangement of all these points. You can manage to write a good report. These were the formal and informal reports. Now students, have a quick review about the formal and informal reports. Here you are looking towards a chart where formal and informal reports are written side by side. In formal report, you are looking towards the chart. The formal report is longer, while the informal report, it consisted mostly
1 to 3 pages. Then formal report is mostly research based and long researched, while in informal report there may be no research, or if there is research, that will be limited one. Then in formal report, supplement parts are there, while in informal report, no prefatory parts. In formal report, indirect approach is being adopted, while in informal report, it is informational. Analysis is there in formal report, while personal language is being used in informal report.
Students, after having a discussion about the formal and informal reports, let's have a quick review about the differences of these two reports. Students, here is a quick review about the differences between formal and informal report. Formal reports are often used in academic papers or to provide a lengthy overview of a major change or development within a business, while informal reports are used to shorter documents such as memos and newsletters. Formal reports are more detailed, while informal reports are less detailed. Formal reports have a set structure, an introduction, body, and conclusion, while informal reports can be structured in any way. Formal reports have a formal tone and use third-person narrative, while most informal reports use first or second-person narrative, although some informal reports use a professional tone. It is not required in many cases. Formal reports analyze a specific topic in great detail, while informal reports are often very brief and only include the most relevant information. Formal reports also provide evidence to back up the information in the report. While some informal reports are brief, evidence to back up the information is not included in this type of report. Formal reports usually include citation for the sources used to generate the report, and there is no such thing in informal report. Charts, graphs, and statistical information are also common components of formal report, while there is no such thing in informal report.
Dear students, here you are looking a sample report for your understanding. As you are looking towards the report, it is started from the address and date at the top of the page, and then subject is being mentioned, that is plastic awareness campaign, and after that a brief introduction about the campaign, that what is the issue, what is the problem prevailing in that situation. And after introducing the issue, there are some steps which are being taken in this regard. These are mentioned here. And the next step which is you are looking, that is findings, that what are the findings about this situation, and then conclusion is mentioned, and after conclusion recommendations are put forward, then further information, and finally at the end name and address is being mentioned at the last. This is a format of a report, that how you can write a report. Students, here are some tips for writing the reports, and in this regard the first step is to add the body. While you are writing the body, you must be well aware that what is the issue, so that you can write down the real information or relevant information about that issue in your report, which will make your report a more effective one and more communicative one. The next step here you are seeing, that is visual with purpose. All those visuals which you are including in your report must be relevant to your topic or issue, so that these visuals can strengthen the arguments which you are inculcating in your report. As much as visuals you are adding, that will not only strengthen your report but also make it effective one. Now the third step in this regard is well written report. The arrangement or sequence of all the points must be systematical, must be systematical one, according to the importance of different points, and then all the wordings which you are using, that must be clear in tone, the language must be clear, easily understandable for the readers. Avoid to use technical or scientific language or words, so that it may not create any hurdle in the understanding of the reader. The next step is stick to the facts. Students, whatever the information you are including in your report must be factual based, reality based, must not be fake one. If you are adding some hypothetical information in your report, then your report may become doubtful. So be careful while you are adding or gathering or collecting the information. All those information must be factual based and reality based, so that it can make your report authentic and reliable. The next step is use a grammar checker. While you are writing your report, you must be vigilant enough to check the grammar of your report, so that the process of communication may not be affected because of any weaknesses in your grammar. Then the last step is small appendices. Means to say that you have to add the references from where you have collected your information. This segment will more strengthen your report while you are depicting the references at the end of your report. So students, finally we can say that reports in written form are useful for future reference. Reports provide adequate and correct information as well as statistical data to management and helps in decision making. A report provides information of unknown facts, just like that new ideas, new vision, new solution to problem, new research about a particular matter. A report provides valuable information of all sectors in the different departments. Hence, reports are useful for solving the problem of various departments. Report acts as an important and effective internal tool of communication.
Dear students, I hope that all what we have shared about the report and types of report that will help you to understand thoroughly about the report and its type. Thank you.